5 videos, so we now have the full release of the Y2JB project. YouTube jailbreak by Gajan, which is a userland exploit, which we're hoping we'll be able to use to chain with the lab's kernel exploit to be able to jailbreak the PS5. So that is the general idea. Now, at the moment, this is just the userland portion of the exploit that has been released, so we cannot use it to run the jailbreak But it has had a number of improvements, including stability improvements, and it now has a payload loader as well. So you can send payloads to execute on the console using this exploit. So we have an official release here, version 1.0, and we have the backup file which you can restore using a USB drive. You can restore the backup file. That's the easiest way to get this installed, especially for people who don't have previous jailbreaks. But if you have a previous jailbreak, you can download this version. The download 0 version, which contains the exploit file that you can install manually with FTP in order to get the jailbreak without having to restore a backup. If you happen to be testing this on a console that already has a previous jailbreak available, so I'll show you guys how to get everything set up. So that once you have the jailbreak ready, any new payloads that get released for this, including hopefully the lab's kernel exploit as a payload in the future, you'll be able to load it because you already have the exploit set up and ready. So you can see here, the installation instructions are for jailbroken and non-jailbroken PS5s. So if you don't have a previous need to restore the backup file. Now, you can do this by, of course, just downloading the file itself, the backup file zip file, and then extract the PS5 folder from that zip file to the root of a USB drive that's formatted in SFAT format, and then plug that into the PS5, and then go over to the settings, the system settings, and go to the backup and restore options, and use the restore option to restore that backup file onto your PS5, but do make sure that you make your own backup before doing so of your current PS5, because restoring somebody else's backup does wipe your console of your save files, installed applications, and settings. So you're gonna want to make your own backup file first to the USB, save that somewhere safe on your computer, and then restore this backup file so that you don't end up losing all of the stuff that's currently on your PS5. So that is the general idea. Now the installation process for jailbroken is a little different, because you can set this up without having to restore a backup. If you have a previous jailbreak that you can order to get this installed for testing. So if you have a previous jailbreak, then there's a few things that you need. Version 1.03 of the YouTube application, the USA version, which I'll leave a link to down in the video description. It has to be that exact version. Then we need to download the exploit file by going to the latest release here and downloading this Y2 JB download 0.zip file and extracting the download 0.dot file from that zip file to your desktop. Then what we can do is copy the YouTube package file to the root of a FAT32 or exFAT formatted USB drive and plug the USB drive into the PS5. So use your normal jailbreak method to enable the debug settings for the console by just running the jailbreak. And then you can also run the FTP payload on port to 1-to-1. Once you have the jailbreak loaded. So once we have that all up and running with the jailbreak running, we can now install the YouTube application by heading into the debug settings, going to game and package installer, and then selecting the YouTube application that is on the USB and installing it onto the console. And that will get the 1.03 version of YouTube installed, which is the exact version that we need. The next thing we need to do is get the exploit file installed. And we can do that by heading back over to our computer, and then opening up an FTP client on our computer, entering the PS5's IP address here in the host box, and then the port number as to 1-to-1. Quick connect to the console remotely, and then we're gonna head to a different location than the beta version. We're gonna go into the user folder and then into the download folder. And then we want the YouTube application, which is PPS-A1650. If this folder doesn't exist, you can run the YouTube application once to create it, or just create the folder yourself manually by right-clicking and creating the directory. But you need the PPS-A1650 folder, and inside there you can see we have a familiar file, download 0.that, and we want to replace that with the one from the exploit. So just drag and drop the one for the exploit and select the option to overwrite, and that is it now installed. So that's how you get the exploit set up. Then on the PS5, we need to head into our network settings. Then go to our settings, set up an internet connection. Then press the options button on your registered network and go to advanced settings. And then scroll down to primary DNS. So make sure your DNS settings, first of all, are set to manual and not automatic. And then set to the primary DNS to 7.0.0.2 and then click done and then click OK. Now it will fail to connect to the internet. But that's fine as long as we have a network connection. If we go to System Software Console Information, you can see I do have a valid IP address. So the console is connected to the network. It just cannot resolve a DNS addresses, which prevents the YouTube application from trying to override the file for the exploit, which is what we want. But we can still have a network connection to send payloads on the exploit now. Another requirement is that your PS5 account needs to be activated. Otherwise, you'll get this error message. When you try to open up the YouTube application, this is not an issue when you're restoring the backup. It will come with an activated account, however. If you're installing it manually, you will need to activate your account. The quickest way to do that is to just run the ETA hen with your existing jailbreak. And then inside the ETA hen toolbox, you can select the remote play option. And that will offline activate the PS5 account for you. And then you can simply just restart the PS5. And then you'll be able to load the YouTube application. So restoring the backup file is much easier, but if you don't want to end up resetting any of the stuff on your console, then you can set things up this way instead if you do have a previous jailbreak. So with all of that set up, now we can run the YouTube application, and that should run the userland exploit. So we can just click OK to this PlayStation side in message, and we can see it starting the exploit there. Remote.js loader is running listening on the IP address on port 50,000. So YouTube jailbreak 1.0 by Gajine. So that is all up and running. So I click OK to this message here. We can see we are awaiting a connection at 192.168.137.1 on port 50,000. So I can now send a payload to actually execute on the console with this userland exploit. So if I go ahead and just switch back over to my computer here, there is a payload included, a test payload. So to get the test payload, we just want to go to the source code and download it as a zip file. And then open up that zip file and extract the payloads folder from it to your desktop. And we can use this to send a payload. So we've got the payload sender Python file. If I right-click and open in terminal, we can enter the command. You do need Python installed for this. You can get Python from the Microsoft Store. Just search for Python and get it in the Microsoft Store. And then we can simply type in Python, and then the name of the file that we're gonna execute with Python, which is the payload sender.py. We can paste that in, enter the IP address of the PS5 next, which in my case is 137.188. Then you can put in the port number, which is 50,000, and then the payload that we want to execute, which is this hello world test payload, which just gives you a couple of messages that are printed on screen. So we get the message that is printed to the log, which will appear on the console. And then we have the actual notification, which will be displayed as a notify message on screen. So that is located in the Hello World folder, and then hello world.js. So we'll just type in hello world. I mean, you could put the full file path, but I'm just doing the short path here, and then hello world.js, and then when we press enter, it should send that file to the console. So I'll go ahead and press enter, and we can see it displayed there. Hello from remote.js shows up, and then it also says there in the log hello from remote. JS executed successfully, and then the connection is closed. Then it awaits another connection so that you can send a follow-up payload. So I can send the payload again. If I just go ahead and send it again, there you can see it pops up again. So you can send multiple payloads one after the other. So this is the only test payload that's available, but you now create your own custom payloads and send them. And also you now have the exploit set up and ready for any future payloads that get released. Because eventually we'll get some kind of lapse kernel probably exploit as a JS file, as a payload that we can send to this exploit to then run the jailbreak. That is the hope that we'll eventually get that. But for now, we have the userland portion of the exploit done, and it is able to execute payloads. So we're just waiting to see what new payloads come out for this exploit in the future. But at least you have it set up and ready now for any new payloads that do come out. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful.